Good morning, UPBOptionMillionaires.com on this Tuesday, June 19th, 2018, 10 minutes before the opening bell, probably less than that when this video gets uploaded, and futures are plunging. More tariff trauma. We're down over 1.25% for NASDAQ futures. S&P 500 futures down over 1%, small caps sharply lower as well. We've heard this news before, and we know ultimately it's going to be a great buy the dip opportunity. Here I was just looking at the NASDAQ, and you remember the long-term QQQ chart that we came up, possible head and shoulders topping pattern before we busted through to new all-time record highs. That was the head, shoulder, shoulder, and we busted through to record highs. Well, now I'm looking at the NASDAQ 100 futures here, and you can see we had, and you recall back in January when I posted this before the massive move to the downside that we had, volatility blowing up, we had the head and shoulders topping pattern, and that preceded the decline. Well, look what we have here short term. Just something to keep in mind. We have a possible short term head and shoulders topping pattern would be a neckline, and we just broke that neckline overnight. So something to keep an eye on. We also, if you look at S&P 500 futures, came up to just about that 2,800 level, which has been a point of interest in the previous declines. Look back in March and also back at the end of February before we started the decline. So we got up near 2,800, could not break above it. We're starting to decline here, finding support over at former resistance back in May before we broke through. So there's a line to watch here, 2740 in the S&P 500 futures. We break through there, we could be looking at some sort of a sharper decline to 2680. But something to keep an eye on here for S&P 500 futures. NASDAQ, possible head and shoulders topping pattern. Not to say this market is exhausted for good. I think we're going to head higher into the end of the year than we are now, new all-time record highs. And, you know, I was just talking about that back at the end of May. We had Italy. Remember, after Memorial Day, the markets were plunging. Heading into June, do you remember Italy, the decline? And actually, after the day after the Italy declined on a Tuesday, the market went up every single day, and actually NASDAQ futures to a new all-time record high. Pretty remarkable. So you want to talk about some of this stuff being priced in. I'd imagine that this is just another excuse, another named excuse to sell the market, and that ultimately will sober everybody up after some of the rallies that we've seen. Look at GameStop late yesterday, a nice move to the upside on chatter from the company is actually confirmed this morning. It's up over 15, got some $14 calls for July a couple weeks ago. So those are looking good. Again, it's a multi-year bottom here, so that's a really nice chart to look at. And if you look at a stock like RCII, the buyout announced yesterday, certainly not a new or a surprising event. You can go back a couple years. It's been a subject of a takeover chatter, and finally yesterday for what, 1.4 billion including debt for the buyout, which back for the same price per share 15 a year ago, the buyout number was 800 million. So just watch some of these other corporations that have been really beaten down, and the irony is the buyer of RCII, Rent-A-Center, has been accumulating a stake in Vitamin Shoppe, and you can see the price action starting to turn here. Something to keep an eye on here. VSI could be the next one. Might be a little bit because they're still accumulating a position. And if you look when they started getting into RCII, and the announcement was last year, over a year ago, so it'd be a lot of time to this. But I think over that time we could see a move back over 10, 1250. So look for some calls there, VSI, and some of the names that have been really popping that could see a pullback here after we get a possible resolution of this head and shoulders pattern. For the NASDAQ would be a stock like Weight Watchers, which ironically JP Morgan Chase on Friday upgraded to overweight from neutral to overweight. So the irony that their rating is overweight on a corporation that tries to keep the overweight not so overweight. So over 100 for the first time in recorded history for Weight Watchers. Again, if we get this continuation of the pullback for tech, I think Weight Watchers is going to head back under 90. Sober everyone up. We get supported about 80 for Weight Watchers. How about Shoppe? Shoppe has been on a tear. Shopify, if you look this morning, analyst out moving the target up to 190. So it's been on a really strong tear for Shoppe. Is another one that could pull back to 160, just on the weakness overall for the market. A couple other names that have been really soaring, and these are the ones that have been targeted by the renowned quote-unquote short sellers who have just been taken to the woodshed on some of these names. How about Wayfair? What a huge move to the upside. Look at a candle just over the last month. Gigantic move to the upside. And you're looking at this bull market for tech as we hit new all-time record highs. A lot of the heavily shorted names have just been going haywire. Speaking of heavily shorted, how about Tesla? And if you look at Tesla, just a beautiful month for Tesla, encompassing the entire bull flag. This is going back to the spring of 2017. You see we briefly broke to support here, held perfectly, bounced. We encompass this entire bull flag, now looking for a break higher. Of course, if you read the headlines every day, you would think that Tesla's trading at zero. You know, they get a flat tire and the shorts are ready to say that the car is worthless because there's nails on the road. And this bull flag looks a resolution over $400 a share. You remember back when it was 100, we had the analyst calling $39 a share. You know, Goldman Sachs, when back in 2013, was saying sell, and you can see these candles at the top side. And then we bounced. So the analysts really, especially the bearish ones, have been terribly wrong for the stock. The renowned quote unquote short sellers have been absolutely wrong with the stock. And I think that's why it continues to head to the upside. Same with a stock like Nvidia. Look at this, a parabolic move starting in the middle of 2016. You know, where does it stop? You would think $300 this year is certainly not out of the question. And look at the AMD. Now, you can go back to the financial crisis and you look back to the internet bubble. Look at this chart. We had the internet bubble, financial crisis. Look where we are now, just breaking out of a bull flag for AMD. So if we are repeating history here, AMD has got a lot of room to go. You say back, up to $40 a share, $42.50. That would be a really intense run for AMD, which if that indeed is the case and history is repeating itself, that means this bull market and the rally we've seen with tech has a long way to go. We're a couple years away, of that, until that next recession hits. So AMD, a very bullish break to the upside. This could be the beginning of a move over 20 and 25 and possibly 30. All right, UPBOptionMillionaires.com. The opening bell is about to ring. Everyone have a great trading session. See you in the chat room.